Hello and welcome to the New Wave South Asian edition. With me today, I have Rashi, Jain, and Rohini Jadhav. And this conversation is basically to demystify the workings of art department. So let's begin with a little clip that Rashi has made. And it's a great introduction to the production design department. So here we go. Over to you, Rashi.
Thank you. That's it.
That's really wonderful. And this is all your work.
Yes. Yes.
So introduce yourself, Rashi.
I'm Rashi. I am an architect from India. I did my bachelor's in architecture in Mumbai. And then I worked with Parul ma'am. That was my first ever job in the industry. I started post architecture. I worked in a construction firm. I was making toilets for the first 6 months, and I was like, oh, this is not that satisfying. I want to do something more than this. And production design was something that I had started hearing about since third year of architecture. So I think once that one internship didn't really satisfy me, the 6 months of that, I was like, okay, now I want to like start getting in touch with some production designers and see what this field is about. I had no idea. So I remember I LinkedIn messaged you, ma'am, in like October or something. And I forgot to check it because like I don't know. I thought that, oh, maybe film industry does not work on LinkedIn, and
Actually,
maybe
it doesn't.
exactly.
It doesn't.
And you had responded to me then, but I didn't check it. I got busy with some weddings and everything, and then I checked it in February. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I just checked this, and you were like, oh, I have something coming up. And I think that's how most of my jobs even here worked out. Like you reach out at the right time, and then they need somebody, and then that was my first internship. I worked with you for 2.5 months, and I loved working with you. Like you taught me everything. You really showed me every department. I was
Okay.
doing it is true. I'm not saying this because you're here. I say this on every other
No,
podcast
no,
and
no,
stuff.
I know, but yes.
So, and then I had applied for film schools then. And even that, like, I think I got like a reply from AFI and CalArts while we were in Mahabaleshwar
Hmm.
for like the last leg. And then I moved here. I was like, I want to study more. I want to learn this more. My parents, they were like understanding this field, and they were like, "Acha, you're coming at 2 a.m. and you're leaving at 7 a.m. again." But I mean, they were very supportive. They were like, "Yeah, go do your thing, go study." So I moved here, studied, and I have been working. I worked under a production designer when I started out, and I think a year, but because like I had to like figure out my visa, everything, you have to sort of be head of department to
Hmm.
get like your O1B and everything. So I pretty much went out, ventured on my own. Even during school, I was like working for free on so many projects, trying to make my contacts, trying to build my networks. And then once I got out, the same thing, reaching out to people, understanding, and just doing the work. So here I am,
Yes.
6 years later.
So
Cut
just to
to.
give a context, because I didn't introduce myself, I'm Parul Sondh. I'm an
Oh,
Indian
yes.
production designer based in Paris. And Rashi and Rohini, both of them are Indian production designers, Indian origin production designers, but based in Delhi. So now we come to Rohini. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm just gonna share screen while I introduce myself. But I am Rohini. I'm originally from Gwalior, India, but I grew up in the Middle East and now I'm based in LA. Um, I moved back to India to pursue my architecture degree. So even I have a background in architecture and I studied in Pune. Um, at the time, I had no idea about like a possibility of working in films at all. So I actually went on to work for 2 years for an architecture and design firm based out of Gurgaon. So that was my first job straight out of college. It was around the time that a couple of my classmates who were originally from Mumbai, they had moved to Mumbai to pursue their internships, and I started hearing them talk about, oh, there's this thing like you can work in films and you can be an art director and you can sort of like design for sets, and everyone who knew me and who went into that field would call me and be like, Rohini, this is you, this is you. You eat, sleep, breathe films. That's all we used to talk about. Like everyone who knows me, they knew that the first thing you meet me, I'll be like, oh, what's your favorite film? So that's kind of how that's my opening question. And so they were like, oh, this is totally you. You should do this. And so I was like, okay, how do I get into this? And somewhere along the line, I had also done a summer program at SciArc in Los Angeles shortly after I finished my architecture degree. So when I was looking for grad school programs, I saw that they had a program called Fiction and Entertainment, which they had just opened up. It was a 1 year program designed for architects who wanted to transition into entertainment. And I was like, hey, that's me. So I applied to that program and got in. And it was a lot of like sort of convincing my parents, because my parents were convinced on the grounds that I was going and pursuing a master's degree from one of the top 10 architecture schools in the US. So that's my reasoning for convincing them that this is a degree worth pursuing. And they were like, yeah, this production design and all, we don't understand, but you do your degree. And then after that, job nahi mila entertainment mein, you can go back to architecture. And I was like, sure. So that's kind of how I came into this. And then straight out of school, I started assisting other production designers here in LA. Worked for multiple production designers, same as Rashi. I just had to like cold email people and just hope that someone finds my profile interesting. And because I didn't go to a traditional film school of sorts, I didn't understand the whole holistic concept of production design even after graduating from school. I just knew in my 1 year made my own short film, and in that short film, like I wrote, edited, directed. I was like a one woman army for that entire thing. I even did my own post production. So I learned to use some post production softwares and stuff like that for that. But what that did for me was that taught me the overall process of filmmaking. And so I was like, okay, design and writing are the two parts I like. And I just jumped into working with production designers. Very late into my 1 year after graduating, I realized, like Rashi, that yes, you need a visa to work here. You have to be a head of department. And I was like, now this is a whole other headache. So I started then working for independent short films, which I really loved, but it was a challenge because, like I said, didn't go to film school, so didn't have a film school network of people that I could reach out to. There was no one I knew who was directing, and also again, it was like cold emailing people and being like, hey, can I design for you? Um, and then, yeah, during the pandemic, moved back to India. So that's when I worked in the Indian film industry. So my time of working in the Indian film industry is actually post LA. I worked there during the entire pandemic time, and now I'm back in LA. I also, a couple of other things that I've done was I did the production design initiative that the Art Directors Guild over here holds, which is sort of an initiative for entry level production designers. I was a part of that in 2019, and now I'm also pursuing a screenwriting certificate. So that's another thing I'm doing. My other interests are like sketching, art. I've just recently got into lino cut, so I've been doing a lot of like lino cut printing work. I just love sketching whenever I can. I'm obsessed with 90s cartoons, as you can see. Like I said, screenwriting. So I actually recently finished my own like short film script, and I'm kind of looking to hopefully direct it sometime next year. So I'm very excited about that. But I'm also pursuing a screenwriting certificate with UCLA. So I'm sort of in the process of learning the entire craft of screenwriting. And I also love dancing, and I used to learn Kathak as a kid, but I never had the discipline to continue. So recently, I've gotten back into it. I've started taking classes for Kathak. So hopefully, that's something. Um, this is a couple of my production design work. As I mentioned, a lot of my independent production design work is stuff that I've done in LA. So I mostly work in the narrative space, and so it's usually a lot of short films. And um, I love you. A question you'd asked us, Parul, actually was about genres, and I was like, my genres, I love fantasy and sci-fi, but somehow I end up doing what my mother calls dark, depressing movies, which
Don't we all?
all these
Don't we all?
social centric, someone's
Yeah,
that
yeah.
hard hitting social issues, a trend which continued in India also. So one of the projects I worked in my art department, it was an entire black and white film which fully centered around social issues, Bheed. And my mom's like, I can't do this. I can't watch what this girl makes. I can't. This is not something I can be a part of. So she's very supportive from afar. She will send people messages saying, "My daughter does production design. Please go see her film because I can't watch it." So that's a little something about me. Yeah.
But that's really fantastic that you are right now pursuing screenwriting and you're a production
Yeah.
designer. So you understand space, and then you are right now learning or, kind of working on your skill set of screenwriting. Because as production designers, we translate the script into the space.
It's
So
sort of now the reverse.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that's really nice that you have that skill set, like you're building that skill set and you're already a production designer. It's really fantastic. It's a great
Yeah.
combination.
Thank
And
you.
I,
now, yeah,
I was saying I agree. Like you'll actually know what it takes to make what you're writing.
yeah, because it is so
You
In
know?
important
some ways,
that
yeah.
not many people kind of know what production designers do,
Yeah.
because that is something, like I always say, what do we do?
What do we do?
What
What
do you
is
do?
Well,
it?
apart from painting one ball blue in 5 frames, what else do we do? So I want to know from both of you, what do we do? What are production designers, and what exactly do we do? So who wants to go first?
Rashi, take it away.
Okay. What do we do? We visualize everything that's written down. You get a script for, in terms of movies, you get a script. For music videos and commercials, you get a treatment. Once you get the treatment, you go through it. And to me, and I think to most of us, when we read, we can start imagining, right? You can
Hmm.
start imagining what colors it would be, what the character is like, and then you have questions. Like whenever I'm doing a short film, I would always read it, and then I have like my list of questions. I'm writing it down, and I'm like, okay, but what does this color character read, or what does this character eat, or why does like I am a person who does not eat. I don't eat a lot of vegetables, so like, and does that define what kind of food I will eat? Yes, it will define what kind of food I will eat in a movie. So understanding a character, understanding the language and the space around the character, I think that is the most important thing. What we do, what we try to get out. And then in terms of short films and in terms of commercials and music videos, it's a little different. It's more, for commercials, it's more about the product, right?
Hmm.
Everywhere I'm like, okay, yeah, but the world is this, and they're like, yeah, but we need to make sure we see that one small perfume bottle that's kept there, So like, how do you highlight that? How do you bring that to the eye, and how does that the maximum focus? Versus in music videos, it's like a lot of music videos is very like, oh, we want to like for SZA, it was we want to put her on a boat. Now what do we do? So I was like, so now I'm coming up with, oh, maybe we like make it a trash barge sort of a situation, or maybe we put her on a diving board, and that can be like the iconic Diana, the Princess Diana kind of a shot. Or maybe we can do, so like coming up with, you get one words or one letters, and then coming up with what world we can create. So I think the biggest, to me, what we do is we create worlds that don't exist, and we create worlds around, and we create worlds that, like, even when I look at these worlds, I'm like, oh my god, how could you imagine that? Like looking at Barbie and just reading about it and understanding about it, I was like, oh wow, they've actually made the sets 23% smaller, just because Barbie is always like a misfit in her place. And I was like, that makes so much sense. So things like that and bringing those things is what we do, I think,
Yes, we build worlds. That's a job.
to build worlds that don't
Yes.
exist.
No. Sounds
And
very
they need to be
simple.
correct for the person, and they need to be correct for the person you're building it for.
Yeah, yeah. It needs to be true to the narrative. It needs to be true to like the space which you are supposed to create. I mean, that's what we do. What about you, Rohini? What is your take on what we do?
I agree with Rashi about the world building aspect. Like literally, when I talk about my grad school program, also I talk about it as that way. Like my degree was in a program in world building. So the idea was you visualize this world, and see how you can bring it to life. And bringing it to life can mean all sorts of things. In some cases, it simply means decorating a space with certain props. In some cases, it means building the entire like physical space that the characters inhabit. And in some cases, it's also simply um, highlighting that element in a specific space. So a lot of outdoor shoots are about that. Like you don't have to build the physical walls, but you're trying to highlight a certain element that you want the viewer to draw their eyes towards.
Mm.
So it's anything within that world building space. I think the simplest way I explain production design to people is, now I have had to do it over the years, is when you're watching a movie, music video, any visual medium, anything that you see on screen besides the actor and their costume has probably been touched by production design.
Yes.
So
Yes.
whether it is the props, whether it is the space itself, whether it is that one little kapda hanging far off in the background that's fluttering, that's probably put there by the art department.
Yes, I mean,
So it's
yeah,
so that's my simplistic way
Yeah.
of describing production design to people. Anything
yeah,
besides actor and costume
yeah,
Everything you see in a frame,
yeah,
in a
other
frame.
than the person,
Exactly.
literally.
yeah.
Besides the person.
Yeah, besides the person is literally creating in the sense, from a safety pin to the massive sets to everything you see in
Mhm.
a set has been sourced or created or fabricated and has been put there by art department. Not many people know that because it's a very simplistic view of like, and by many people, I don't even mean just the people who don't work in the industry. There are a lot of
Yeah.
people in the industry, even for that matter, directors you work with who don't understand what a production designer can bring in. And I mean, we are involved from the script stage in the sense the minute you're hired, we are basically one of the few people, HODs, who get hired first, with the when production starts lining up. It's production design and it's cinematographer and it's the director. So what that means is that from locations, from location recce, the kind of visual language, like Rashi pointed out, basically from architecture to what we are looking at, which fits in the narrative, it all comes under our department. So we are kind of doing that. And from there, we decide, then comes, of course, your character building, your color palettes, and then comes the set building, whether it's required or not, everything. But generally, every location or every space you see in any long format, in advertising, in anything, has been touched by our department. That is very, very true. And I really hope that at some point that kind of converts into some sort of respect for this department, because that is always something which I find is lacking. Just like, we are, in a way, this department is taken for granted, in the sense, chalo, you come here, you do the work, and you're gone. And after that, it's the people during production which kind of take over the entire thing, and the production design is hidden somewhere. So yeah, that's a very, like, every time it's kind of a thing to explain people what we do. We do a lot. Now,
Mhm. And we're giving you the set that you're actually shooting. This wouldn't have been
exactly,
there.
exactly, the
I'm
physical
always
space.
like, why? Like this, where you are, that's what is given by us.
Exactly, but
And very
usually,
often we have to be like the first ones there and the
and the
last ones
last,
to
And the
leave.
last ones are
yes.
always, always,
Yeah,
Yeah.
always.
you're sleeping really less. You're just working
Yeah.
constantly. I mean, I'm sure that's very different. A little bit. I don't know. You both have to tell me now about how it works in US, because in Bombay we have seen how we work. The minute you get on a project, you are signed by the production. You don't have any weekends. You don't really have any holidays. You don't really get time to sleep as well, because you're just, even I'm talking about you from prep time itself. It's not just during production. So now
Mhm.
you have to tell me, how does it function in LA? Like, what difference? Because you both have worked in Bombay, and now you're working in LA. So now, yeah, how would you say, what is the difference, and what are the similarities, and what is the difference?
I think, I think the minute I get on a project, I am automatically like in prep world till we actually get to start the work,
Hmm.
supposedly. Um, for most of the projects, I mean, as soon as I get on, I would like start working, I would start getting it ready. But I think over here, there was this one time I remember it so clearly because like that like sort of changed me a little. There was this one time when I was like designing a project and it was like 1 a.m. and I got so excited and I messaged the producer at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
I just sent her the deck. I was like, okay, here's the deck. You can share it tomorrow. And she was like, do not message me after 9 p.m. You can email me after 9 p.m. 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. is when you don't message me because it's home time. I mean, and she also is up till 3 a.m. working. But I think that really like so I'm always very careful about that since that, no matter how like carried away I get. And of course, we all work till late nights and we do those things, but I make sure that no matter how close I am, you're a friend, whatever, I make sure that I email and not message people after like 10 p.m. just because I know everybody has homes, everybody has families. And just setting that one line has helped me too, just with my crew as well. Because I also used to have that, like, okay, yeah, we have this to do, just putting a checklist. But I'm like, I'd much rather just send it out in an email so that people can check it at work hours. And I think that's one thing that it took me some time to build, but I've tried to keep it that way. And a lot of people here are very respectful of your time, very respectful of your space. You can, I mean, I've still met people who are like recently only I had something that was they sent me a treatment and they were like, can you do renders, props, and a budget for this? And I'm like, but I'm not even on the project. You're not even telling me if I'm doing the project right now. So like, and still understanding how to say no to them, but also like, I want to work on the project. So how to get that project, but still be like, hey, maybe I'll just send you like a deck and
Hmm.
I'll do the renders only when I'll send you a reference deck till then, and I'll do the renders once I know, just because I don't think I want to put in 2 days into this before I know. So I think having those boundaries and realizing that even after you do that, people still call you back. I think I've
Hmm.
felt that a lot here, even after I say no. Initially, I was very scared to say no, or I was very scared to like put things because I was like, what if they don't call me back? What if they don't like, what if they're like, oh, she's too uptight and she can't. But I think you get called back for what you do. Like people see what I do, people see the kind of work I am doing, and if they want that kind of fun flair, colorful stuff, they would call me. They would call me up. And weirdly, it has become that, oh, your work is so colorful, your work is so. And I'm like, yeah, I guess
Yeah,
it
I guess
is.
this stereotyping just does not leave you. In
It
the
does
sense, if
not
you
leave
have done
you
one gritty textured film, then you're going to get only that for
all.
rest of your life career. I don't know. You've done one period film. That's exactly what you're going to get. And it's surprising because our job is to build worlds, right? So we can build any world. It's nothing to do with our personalities. It's about what we bring and what we can do.
Exactly. Exactly.
What about you, Rohini? What do you feel about the two work cultures, Bombay and LA?
I definitely think that yes, the in the US it's more structured, more boundary driven, and people are more respectful of your time. However, I want to say that I've worked largely in the narrative space, and with that comes the burden of the fact that a lot of these projects don't have a lot of budget.
Hmm.
They are time constrained, so I have often worked weekends. I have often also, a lot of the short films that I shoot, whether they are independent or student films, I haven't done student films for a while now. It's mostly been independent shots. But even in the independent short space, the assumption is that most of the other crew are making their money from other bigger paying day jobs.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
And so the shoots still happen on weekends. So I'm actually still mostly largely working on weekends, working odd hours, because the idea is that Monday to Friday you do the job that pays you, and then this is like almost like a passion project if you want to make the independent film scene happen.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, I'm still getting weekend projects a lot, largely from working in the independent space. Having said that, still more boundaries. Like I literally working on a project right now itself where the director messaged me. Like I sent him a message, he responded like 3 hours later, and then realized it was 11 p.m. But he just responded quickly, and then 2 minutes later, I get a long text profusely apologizing, saying, I am so sorry, I did not see the time. And I was like, it's fine. I'm still working. It's
Yeah.
I'm still learning to set my boundaries. I'm still so India ingrained that I'm like, हाँ जब
Yes.
भी काम चाहिए बुला लो, I'll turn up. Like, that's
Yeah,
kind of
that's a very Indian thing. You
very
just
Indian
get,
mentality. Like
yeah,
whenever they ask you, you get the work done. Like
yeah,
so,
yeah,
I'm still trying to get that out of my brain and realize that I think I'm very respectful about other people's boundaries. I'm not getting. I have to get better at setting my own boundaries and being
yeah.
like, here's what I will do. Another point that Rashi brings up about like setting your boundaries in terms of like the work you do before you're actually brought on. I had to learn that the hard way. I actually did a couple of projects where I put in the work and then later they said, oh, we don't have money, we didn't like, we couldn't like, we can't bring you on board, things like that. And but then they used the work anyway.
Oh, wow.
So
Really?
so like yeah, so that's kind of happened a couple of times. And so I had to then learn the hard way and say like, no, listen, like um because as you say, you get excited about a project, you're ready to dive into the prep work right away. But now I'm starting to be a little more like, no, like tell me when I'm on for sure. Let us discuss the money part of it. Let's discuss the rate and everything before I'm finally on your project.
Yeah.
And
That's
yeah, I
nothing.
think
Don't
some
mean
of
to
the
interrupt, but
project is
I was just adding that that's something that I have also learned over like years. Like it's now, this is my sixth year here. So like now I'm like, nay, this, versus like first 3, 4 years when I'm trying to get my visa, I was doing the same. I was like doing
anything,
anything
right?
and everything that
Yeah,
was coming my way. I mean, I still work weekends whenever I have to and whenever I need to.
yeah,
And prep land stays together, but like you learn to set your boundaries as we go.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's boundaries are very important in our department. There are
Yeah.
clearly no boundaries for us. I mean, and the budget thing which you were talking about is not
Oh
just
yeah.
independent cinema. Even if they do the biggest series,
Every
from all the money which is given to every department, for some reason, our department will never have the budget. I mean, I don't
Well,
understand it, but
yes.
it's always like that. Budget has
Yeah.
yeah.
always been an issue. What a
Yeah.
joy to have producers who actually can kind of understand where you're coming from. I work with a few producers like that as well, who understand what you're talking about and why you think that money is required for a certain set, and they kind of then allocate it. People who understand, but there are also a lot of them who are kind of like, "Arey, yahi to karna hai," you just have to pay. It's what
इतने में
we
हो
do,
जाएगा.
and it's not about just even if you make a wall and paint it, it's not a little canvas. In the sense, it takes time. So
Yeah.
anything when it takes time in cinema is equal to money. It's very simple. If production,
Exactly.
if you're in production, every minute is equal to money. In the same way, if you are in our department, the minute you get in your workers and the minute you get in your team, you are on money as well. So whether you make one wall and paint it, or it still would cost money. It's not something which is
Yeah.
just going to happen automatically. That's very, very
Yeah.
true. I think those two things remain similar, huh? In Bombay, in India,
Yeah.
I think in France, everywhere. I think our
Everywhere.
I think the
Everywhere.
only
Everywhere.
difference is
Because
that at least in here, once you get onto the bigger projects, the hope is that if they're union projects especially,
yeah,
then
so you
your
have a
budget is
good
still a
union.
problem. Your budget for art is still a problem, but hopefully your rate at least is kind of there is a minimum threshold and all. While in India, I noticed you're fighting for your rate also.
You're
Like
fighting
how
yeah,
for
much
even
you
everything,
get paid. You're fighting,
even
you're fighting on all counts
on
basically.
all counts. You're fighting for
yeah.
water, for
Water
your
No,
work.
but
outside,
over here,
water while your workers are prepping the set.
And
Oh yeah, oh my God.
everywhere.
I
You're fighting for, yeah.
no, I was saying I have actually gotten like I've made like my set deck or somebody. I'm like, just pick up like a couple of crates of water because production is not going to be here and we're going to be building and blah blah. So I've made my crew do that too at times. Whenever we're building, we're like, okay, no,
Yeah,
grab water, grab chips for us. We
yeah,
need to take care of ourselves. But with union, what you were saying, it's true that in terms of even on the biggest projects, there's always no money. Even when there's
There's no
like
money.
so much money, there's no money.
mm,
But yes, you are not fighting for your own labor is very, very valued here just because everybody is as
mm,
educated as like a mystery is also that educated as I am, just that his skill set or her skill set and my skill set is completely different. So labor rules and labor laws are like really like I just got into the union and I'm like trying to make that shift to narrative union, but then at this point our world has stopped. So we're
mm.
just waiting for for everything to start up again. The industry is pretty going through some tough stuff right now here.
When something like this happens, and you have like our department also has very strong union. Yeah, like
Hmm.
unlike, I mean, in India also we have union, but they're mainly worker union. They're not really for
Yeah.
HODs and assistants. I mean, you have to pay money, but you don't
Yeah.
really get the
Get
kind
anything
of
out of it.
anything
Yeah.
out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming here in LA, it might be a little bit more different, right? So
Yeah.
when you are right now in the middle of a strike, when no work is happening and it's been going on for months, so what is it like? How does your union support you?
They don't. They do a
Not in
very
at
not in
Yeah, I don't
monetary.
think they can.
And we also like I got into the union. I'm paying all my dues, and you pay dues every year and everything. But I think one of the greatest things is you get health insurance from them. You can add your partner to your health insurance,
Okay.
according to your dues, and then you are guaranteed some. You're guaranteed rates on jobs when you get on the jobs. At this point, the union is just we're helping with the strike. We are getting there. We're conducting events that can help IRC people and that can help like all of us, like from art department to camera to costume and every single art department also like the production designers, art directors have one union, and then the set decks addressers have the other union. So every single thing is under IRC, and we all like there are events that happen, and there are like different things that people do to raise money and to fundraise. So that's one thing, and then you get to also connect with people, which is a good thing.
Hmm.
We have member orientations. Every week I'm getting like all these emails about ADG education. So like they also teach like Rhino and then these different professors. And it's all mainly like
And all
based
these things are free. Like, like,
donation based. So like you can take the
hmm.
classes and you just and you give $20, you give $10 and like they are there, but they exist for you. Like they really help out in these sort of ways where they're trying to connect more people, they're trying to educate more people. I also applied for the ADG production design initiative, but I got rejected. So I was so disheartened because my school also was like not a I went to CalArts, which is primarily like an animation school. So like
Hmm.
I had to like do everything on my own, get out there, just find people on my own and do all that on my own. So I was very disheartened by that. But then I was also like, okay, everybody has their own journey. Sometimes people don't get into the union 10 years later. What's like for me, my one of
Yeah,
my
like I'm
jobs that
still
I was
not
doing.
in the union here. Like I
Yeah.
actually, when I came back, I because I was in the PDI and then I moved to India. So I didn't have the opportunity to join the union yet. And then when I came back here, I reached out to them and they said, "Oh, you're a part of the PDI, you can continue." And I was like, "No, but I don't want to be a part of the PDI anymore. I've done so much work since. I've worked on
Yeah.
bigger projects even in India. So at the very least, I want to get in as an assistant art director or an art director with the union now." And so they were doing back and forth, and then they gave me permission that, okay, the next project you're on, that you can get your union membership. And then the strike happened. So all union workers shut down. So I'm
Yeah.
still on that cusp of union membership. But again, by virtue of being in the ADG's PDI program, even I still get the education emails. I still get all of that. So I still have access to the classes and things like that, which I sometimes take because it's
Yeah.
very helpful, very great to keep up with the newer technologies that are
Software
coming in.
and
Yeah,
And
because now
sometimes you're not going
the
to use them, but you are going to know how to guide. Like when you're the HOD, you're going to have people under you working on them. So even if
yeah.
you don't learn the actual software, you want to know how it operates and what are the possibilities with the software, so you can guide your team to execute that.
This
So
yeah,
happens with me. Sorry, go ahead, ma'am.
no, you go ahead,
I was
Rashi.
saying this happens with me also because because architecture, so like I understand how construction and stuff also works. So here, anytime like my construction crew is building, I'm always talking to them. They're like, "How do you know?" I'm like, "Because I did this, so
yeah,
like I understand, just I can't necessarily, and I can make a wall and I can paint and I can do all that, but I don't necessarily do that. But if you're doing it wrong, I can point it out and tell you that you're doing it wrong."
Yeah, I think it's very important to know the softwares, even if, like you said, Rohini, even if you don't really use it yourself. But if
Yeah.
you have people using it, then at least you can point out what is wrong, what is not. Because now technology has also become a great part of production design in the sense like, even for when you go for location recce's, something like a Procreate, which I just discovered last year, really, really helps a lot because it's so easy to use and it's so there. You take a picture of your space wherever you're shooting, and if you have to construct things, you can just start drawing there and you can just
Mhm.
show the thing there and there. It's so it's like literally it's become so easy. So what are
Yeah.
the softwares you guys use, and what is your process in general? Like, tell me your process from like the moment you get into prep. Like, what is the kind of technology or softwares you use? What do you do? When do you come to the mood boarding? Like in general, what is your process?
I would, I again, understanding character development story, once all that questions are done, once the budget is done, once we know, okay, this is how much we can spend, then I would start designing. And a lot of times I go back and I'm like, but if we do this and if you give me this much more money, we can do this. So I'm always trying to show them what we can get if you can actually give me some more money. And most of the times, with music videos and commercials, they always have them. They always have the money. It's just, and so a lot of times when the producers and directors don't understand, they have to like they have to like, it- I would go to them, I would tell them that, okay, maybe I need like, just an example, I would go to them, tell them I need 10K. They would be like, no, but you have 3K. On the day or midday, they would be like, oh, now we'll give you the extra 7K you needed. Now you do what you want. And like that's happened with me a lot too. So a lot of time, and you get like 6 days to do this. Like even with the M&M job we had, like I got on the job on Thursday and we were shooting Sunday. So it
Hmm.
was like a Thursday, Friday. Friday is the last working day when you can get everything ready. So it's very, very quick. So a lot of times I don't get to I get to only make like SketchUps.
Hmm.
Like once I get a treatment, I'll do a SketchUp and that's very quick. But then on projects when I have time, and mostly on short films, and like I've done 2 features, so I've had time on that. I would start with I usually I start with writing. Like my process is that I would write words and I would like find all the words that resonate to me about the story. Then I would pull images according to those words, and it's mostly feel images. They're never like the exact images of the room. I'm saying the room feels lonely to me. I wouldn't put like I would probably put a plain room, but I would also put like a person actually feeling lonely. So it's mostly feel images, and that's how I start. And then I want to like I always like I'm in a constant dialogue with the director, the DP, mostly the director in the initial moments, just to understand that um are you feeling what I'm feeling, or am I going completely off,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
or can I make you feel, or like, can I explain this to you? And a lot of times that also works, right? It's a part of our job convincing that,
Yeah, of
okay, no,
course.
this will, like, trust me, this will look good, like that times when I'm like, trust me, you gotta just leave this. So I start with that, and then I would go on renderings. Again, I have also not been a part of like a huge project where I have a team rendering for me. I only do most of my SketchUps and renders. Even though I have art directors, they would help me here and there, but because I never have the budget to get them on from the start, I am always doing the first part of the prep, which is like I would start rendering, I would start putting out designs, and then again, then we'll have the creative discussion. Acha, what can we cut? What can we remove? Now
Mm.
we only have this much money to make this, blah, blah, blah. Then once all that happens, I rest. I rest on set. Like I always tell my team, I was like, this is my rest time. My brain is tired. You all do the work now. I am done with this. So like on set, I am, of course, I'm also constantly again in dialogue with people as we build, as we do things. But once we're on set and once we have everything, again at this point, like and a koi period piece, if we have a period piece, I know which prop house to go to. And like again, my set deck, my art director, I've been working with them for the past 2 3 years now, like, and we've built that, and we all understand each other's strengths and weaknesses. So like that is one very important thing to find in a team as well, just to understand that I
Yeah.
know that they lack here and they know that I lack here, so we're always like trying to cover up. And with us, because all of us sort of started in the industry at the same time, I feel very grateful to like have those set of people who I can like fully like do mistakes around, and like they know exactly how I work, what I do, and I know that for them. So it works
Mm.
out very well. And then we wrap very quick. We wrap very quick. We're like, we're out of here in an hour. And then budget, and then I'm sitting on receipts. I would sit with my art director or coordinator. I would just sit on receipts, finish that part up, and then the project's done.
Okay. And you, Rohini?
I think for me, it's again very project dependent because sometimes I get projects where the director has a very detailed lookbook and stuff starting from their end. So they have a very specific vision that I need to come in and execute. And then sometimes they are like, here's the script. What do you think? So it definitely varies. I think for me, the first step is always the script breakdown and just breaking down what is on paper that needs to be there on screen, in terms of props, in
Mm.
terms of set decoration, and and then like multiplying that. Like for example, in the script, they might have very much specified a certain element of set decoration that is there. So in the bedroom, she sits on the bed, but it's not going to be a bedroom with just a bed. It's going to be There's going to be a nightstand,
Mm.
la 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 la, all those additional things that get added on to make the space what it is. So there's a section of like, okay, this is the set deck specified in the script. This is what has to be there to make that entire thing come together.
Mm.
And then there's a lot of back and forth with um, the designers, with the producer and the director about like, what is the budget we have, what are we working with. Sometimes yes, the budget is flexible. I envy you this, Rashi, because I know music videos have a better situation in general
Not
than
all.
like, not all, but generally they tend to be better than the narrative space. But the narrative space is just notorious for like no budget, nahi hai paise. Like they just straight up say like we can't. So I sometimes there are places where they ask you that how much do you think is needed. That honestly is a tougher exercise, I believe, because how do you put in a number before you know the resources you're working with?
Mm.
But sometimes they just give you a number and then you're like, I have to make it work. I will scrounge garage sales. I will go look in my neighbor auntie's garbage and see what she has, but I will make it happen. And so it varies a lot. The next step I think is, like Rashi said, I think even I have to a lot of these projects, especially in the independent scene, prep and wrap. It's only me. Very rarely do I get someone else from my team on board for prep and wrap. So sometimes a lot of the sourcing of the props, a lot of the sourcing of the elements that I'm going to use is my job. I might be able to get a team just on the prep days leading up to set up the actual space and on the shoot days. Having said that, a lot of the projects I work on, because of the budget constraints, if they are set up already, they don't want me to have extra crew even on the actual shoot day. So I've
Hmm.
actually had a lot of like, I'm on my feet 12 hours a day. I very often, like, I just have a very skeleton crew that I can execute. Also, a lot of times we are the kinds of projects I've worked on, we are working in very tight spaces. We are working night shoots where we have to have a skeleton crew for all departments, because there's otherwise problems of neighbors complaining of how big the crew size is. So I feel like I wish I could rest on set, but I feel like sets are also a lot of me running around and making things happen and firefighting whatever problems happen on the day off. Um, I also find myself sometimes firefighting for other departments, because like costume, like something has happened and the dress has come off, and then they're like, does our department have any safety pins? I'm like, why do you need safety pins from our department? But yes, I do have safety pins. Here you go. And then I'm kind of like helping them make it happen. So I sometimes I think that's a facet of independent filmmaking. I end up jumping into a lot of these other situations. But it's all about finally making the project come to life and making every shot count. One thing that I have become more and more mindful of, and this is something to do with my time working in India, is I tell a lot of the filmmakers early on, like, I understand camera language now.
Hmm.
Tell me what you're going to see. I will only design that, because that's how I will cost cut. I will make my money, show where it counts. So sometimes I have discovered that through talking to the filmmaker, that they're not even going to see the entire room. They're
Mhm.
just seeing one corner of the room. Then I'm like, let me put all my money in that one corner of the room. So that's an approach that I'm taking more and more nowadays, where I talk to them and I'm like, tell me exactly what you want to see. Tell me, is it medium, wide, close up? I can then determine how much I need to design. And it's not because I don't want to design the rest, it's just because I want my money to count.
Hmm.
And so I've started taking that approach a lot. I still wishing for the days when I have so much money that I can design all four sides, and I'm like, camera ko jahan dikhana hai, like wherever the camera wants to look, you can look, and every side is nicely designed. But it's still going to be a while to get to that process. And
That's also another thing, right? Not every director knows what they want to see every.
Exactly what I was going to say after you said that. That Rashi then said the same thing, that not every director knows what they want. In fact, most of them don't know what they want.
Yeah.
You're very
I
lucky
think
if
sometimes it's
you.
us educating them. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's me telling them. I have actually literally been on a project where the director even I saw this project advertised and I was like, hey, like, are you looking for a production designer? This is very early on when I was like really hungry for credits, and I reached out saying, I want, like, could you want me to production design? And he was like, so what does a production designer do? Like, what are you going to, like, come on my set and do? And I was like, okay,
Ruin
back
it.
up. Step one. Let's go into that and then worry about what we are going to see. So I've had that happen where I've had to backtrack a few steps. But in general, I then you educate them. That's what I said. Like, now I've learned camera language a little bit, and now I show the director that these are the different frames. This is the extent. So I've started actually holding like images of wide, medium, and close up shots on my phone to show a director who doesn't know that language, and say that this is
I
what I
mean, then I
mean.
feel very sorry for the cinematographer also. Huh? If the director
Yeah.
doesn't know the camera
Yeah.
lenses and what he's going to use. Because
No,
you
not
Yeah.
actually,
lenses, but just understanding the wideness of what
yeah,
you're
it's,
seeing on the screen.
Yeah.
But obviously,
the
then, like,
lenses.
so
Yeah.
then they can go and have that conversation then with the cinematographer, right? That,
Yeah.
oh, like, how are you thinking? And then, like, now I've started asking,
Basically,
sometimes they give you a short list. The director and cinematographer will work on a short list. So
yeah,
I'm like,
usually.
sometimes give me that short list. Maybe that short list will be helpful. So we try to have a collaborative, like a document or a thing which everyone in the team can access. So there's obviously a lot of interfacing between with the camera department on lighting, for example, practical lights versus their lighting. So now I've started coming closer together with the DP and being like, listen,
Yeah,
share your
because you
short list with
know there
me.
are a lot of times in the project when the collaboration between the director, DOP, and the production designer isn't really there, and those are really
Yeah.
nightmare projects. You know, when
Yeah.
you're not in sync with any of these people you're working with, and they are not in sync with you also. So it is
Yeah.
really a nightmare. I think like the best projects are when you're in sync with the DOP, the director, and the production designer, because at the end of the day, this trinity is what makes the film. You know,
Exactly.
this is
And
exactly
hopefully a producer who understands you need the money.
Yeah, and the collaboration. That's also
And the
important.
Yeah.
collaboration. Yeah,
Producer who understands the collaboration and then puts in the money
yeah,
for understanding the
For that, yeah.
collaboration.
Exactly.
You know, it's really very difficult. And definitely, as production designers, cinematography and cinematographers, definitely you have to work
yeah,
Be
together.
in sync.
Otherwise,
yeah,
I mean, but I have worked on projects also where I have not really been in sync with the DOP and the director. And can you imagine what a nightmare that is? Because then you're like, okay, what is going on here?
yeah.
But
So
there
Yeah.
are
yeah,
some
I
projects where they don't want to be. Like the DOP
exactly.
doesn't want to be involved. Like
Yeah.
they're like,
And those are
my
the
job is
projects I
here.
don't want to do anymore. You know, in the sense
yeah,
that
Yeah.
now I've reached the headspace that it needs to be collaborative, because if you're putting in so much of time, because you end up putting in so much of time in your projects, right? So if you're putting
yeah,
that kind of time, then you need it to be collaborative. Like you said, Rohini, that the point is to make the film work, to make a beautiful
exactly.
film with that
Yeah,
professionals who understand the power of collaboration, because what else is there in filmmaking if not collaboration, you know? And yeah, it's very true. But now coming back to the art department, like what, like I also wrote in the prompts, this question has been asked many times: what makes a good art department, and what
mm.
are your preferred designations? Like, you have to have a set decorator, you have to have a graphic designer, you have to, what are the key people you need to have in your team to kind of make your work happen? So yeah.
I think for me, I would love to have. I always have a set decorator. I mostly always have an art director slash coordinator who's always. I mean, again, I don't have a separate budget for coordinator and art director, but I would have an art director slash coordinator so that on set it takes a little bit away from me so that I
Hmm.
can concentrate and be on frame, and she or he can like then direct everybody else around me. There are times when I mean there are projects that I've done where it's been like three people then obviously we're like doing everything and every single person is doing everything. I've shopped, I've done graphics,
Hmm.
I've done every single part of it. But at this point, I always try to have one. I'm like, I am your point person, and if you, I'm all on set whenever we have a power, when we start, when there are new people who come in the morning, the set dressers who come in, we're always like, okay, your first point of contact is my art director.
Hmm.
Then it's me. You come to me after if they cannot solve your issues, but they mostly always can. So having an art director in that sense is very important just because I like to be on frame. I like to be where I am and then just be on the walkie telling, just understanding and moving things. So that's why, and then having a set deck, so important. Just and having a set deck who understands my language. I'm like, Acha, I want this, and they understand. And I always wanted to be, even with my team, I try to keep it as collaborative. Like I don't want people to send me 20 pictures of acha, if I'm telling you go find like a fun art fabric. Like a lot of times here, instead of cleared art, like one of the techniques that we use is I would go to Joann's or something, buy some kind of fun fabric and put that on a frame and that becomes art. So I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, yeah, go find a fun fabric. Or like, I would give you colors and I'll tell you a feel, but don't send me 30 pictures. Send me the three pictures that you think are the best.
Hmm.
And then I can pick from those. And that's how I like to work just with my team. So I think having an art director and set decorator is very, very important. And then, of course, I have set dressers. I have a lead man who would like pick up, people who are like really good with the truck. They know
Hmm.
exactly how to work the truck. They would be there. People who, a lot of times on set, on like some of the narratives that I've done, I the producers would be like, "What if we give you a PA?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, no. A PA and an art PA are two very different things. I don't
Hmm.
want to teach people how to use which tape where.
Hmm.
Like that's not so fine. You give me a budget, and maybe I'll find a PA who knows a little bit of art, just so. And even with having four people who can lift versus having two people who actually know art department is much more like, don't give me four people who can just follow instructions. Give me two people who like know how to use which tape where, just so I don't have to put my energy into that.
Hmm.
And so having, I think, just And again, a lot of people don't understand that because, yeah, we are lifting, we are moving a lot of things, we are building a lot of things, we are painting. But again, even with painting, people don't understand that you have to prime first, then you have to sand
Hmm.
wherever, then you have to seam the wall. वो सब सबको नहीं आता. I know because I've learned it, and art people know how to do it. Versus a normal PA would be like, "Acha, all the strokes are bad and all that." And I'm like, and I always ask, have you painted before? If you haven't, then do something else. And time and again, when I have a bigger crew, I'm like, okay, I can take two people who absolutely don't know our department, and I'll still be covered, I'll still be covered with
Yeah,
my team
yeah,
completely.
yeah.
So I'm okay to work with new people. I'm okay to train new people as long as you're willing to learn, you're hardworking. But I think our director, set deck, and just having and sometimes not even an art director, sometimes I do a lot of the coordination and I do a lot of that. So like having a set deck, very very important. And then just having at least two people in your team who know
Hmm.
art on bigger projects, just so they can, just so I don't have to micromanage that. But again, like it took me at this point, I, I have been working with my team for the past 3 years, so we all have like a very good tuning and we all know our roles pretty well and set, so that I'm grateful for that at this point.
So you feel like you have made a good art department for yourself.
Yes, yes. And I would hire them on every project, and they would also like a friend of mine recently, I was talking to him and I was like, "So what are you up to?" And he's like, "I'm cheating on you. I'm working with somebody else." And I'm like, "That's fine, you take the job." And I'm like, if you're getting paid more, if you're getting more days, take that. That's no problem. And like again, finding at least two to three people who can do the same kind of work, that is tough. Finding But at this point, I at least have two people in every department that I know. Like even if I'm doing two projects at a time or three projects at a time, I can have one person on every project, and I still know it'll go well because they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that at this point.
And what about you, Rohini?
Um, I think for me, I'm still finding my groove in that sense. And the reason I think it's simply the nature of how my work has panned out because I went away to India. I came back, and then so a lot of the people that I knew from when I was here, they've either left, they've moved away. So I'm already like right now I'm back in the space of like starting to find new people to work with. One of my very close mentors also recently just passed away. So I was like that was devastating to me because I was like, okay, like she was someone who I would go to for like advice on who else I should hire because she knew my working style. So
Hmm.
that was so I'm literally in the space of just getting that team building exercise all over again. But to me, I think if I had the option, I think Rashi also covered it. The narrative space, they often tell you like we'll get you a PA and all. So I am dealing with that a lot. I do have a lot of times when I'm given a PA who absolutely has no idea about art department. But I think because of this experience, I've become a very patient person on set in terms of teaching new people. So almost every single project I've had my PAs come, they're non-art PAs, but they all come back and they're like, "You're so calm on set. Like we got it done and you explained how to use it and I know how to do it." And I'm like, I've just done this drill so many times that now I've reached the point of zen where I'm like, करना ही पड़ेगा अभी और एक कुछ सिखाओ tape कैसे use करना है, like teach one more person how to drape the curtain. So it's reached that point, and it's just a function of me having moved around so much that I can't consistently, I haven't been able to build that team long term yet. My non-negotiable would be an art director, I think, because I think a lot of the art directors that I get are aspiring PDs themselves. So I know that they come from a space of understanding the language. And in the narrative space, in the independent scene, especially, you don't have a big team. So I need an art director that doubles up as a set decorator. So because sometimes the project might require a lot of construction related elements, sometimes it might only require prop related elements. So you need to be flexible about what that is. And usually they are because they are also themselves looking to be production designers and know that they have to oversee everything ultimately. So the set dressers are important to me. If I can get one or two set dressers that know their way around, because on the day off, there will always go something will go wrong, and having set dressers that know how to handle that is important. Um, I have noticed, and I try to keep a mix of, I want to say, this is a little bit of stereotyping, but I like to have a balance in my art department between like men and women, because I just sometimes feel like the women I've hired have been more detail oriented, and I don't know why it is. Like it's just
Because we are the
it just
best.
happens. It just happens that they're more detail oriented, and I maybe I'm not working with the right men, but just that the women I've hired have been so much more detail oriented, just because that's how they are in their own homes. They are always kind of tweaking things, and they're like, I want it to be a certain way, right? So I noticed that without me telling them, they go and get that fixed. Like sometimes with the guys, I'm like, that thing's out of place. It wasn't like that in the previous frame. While I notice a girl's always like, oh, I need to fix that up. So I'm like,
Mm.
yeah. So that's one thing. Like if I can have more women on my team, I'm always happy. Um, and yeah, I think, like I said, art director is my next go-to hire. Set dressers on set would be my important ones. But PAs, honestly, narrative space, I've just given up. I'm like, whoever you can find who's going to work for your rubbish rates. Because that's one thing I feel very strongly about. I'm like, I don't want to call someone and then offer them your rates and then call in a favor for your film. So I'm like, if
Yeah.
you are going to pay such a ridiculous rate, you find the person who's willing to work for that rate, and then I'll make it work with that. Because if I'm like, I'm trying to set that boundary now, where I'm like, if I'm hiring someone, this is their ask and I want to match it.
Hmm.
So
This happened with me too recently. I'm like, bro, they're coming on my name, my goodwill, and they don't owe me any favors. So they're not like, if I'm
exactly.
calling somebody, this is the lowest I pay. And if you want to bring somebody, fine, find me someone. Because this has happened to me too. Like on a recent project, I was like, अच्छा मेरे पास 3,000 है, but I was like, नहीं हमें इतना चाहिए, all that. And I kept telling them, I was like, 10 by 10 is small, 10 by 10 is small on the location. I was like, I have had people walk into a 10 by 10 room and be like, oh, I don't have anywhere to shoot. You know, I've had DPs do that. And I'm like, because it is small, you would think 10 feet, wow, but it's not.
Oh, 10 by 10 is
So,
small.
10 by 10 is small. So I'm like, but you have the money to only do 10 by 10. You want to do eight different setups. So, like, there were people who are like, oh, can they do a half day? Because, and I'm like, no, they're
Hmm.
not doing me
They
favors.
can't. They can't
Especially at
do.
this time, especially at this point, I'm not paying anybody like $100 who's super skilled, you know.
Mm.
I'm not doing that.
Especially
So
this year, it's been more pressure on that. Like this
exactly.
year, like I've had a lot of, because of the strikes being ongoing, I've been getting a lot of people requesting saying, ki, but sab free honge, all of them will also want work. They'll come for low rate. I'm like, because
Yeah.
they don't have work, they need to get paid from these projects.
Yeah.
So like
It's
it's
shitty
the
the amount of
reverse.
lowballing. It's shitty the
The
amount of
amount of
lowballing that has
I think
happened.
my biggest thing as a production designer, dealing with the low balling on
Yeah.
every count.
On
So
every count.
It's the same everywhere. But
yeah.
one thing I wanted to now, we have spoken about so many people, art directors, set dressers, set decorators. Tell me, like, what does an art director do? What does a production designer do? What does a lead man do? What does a set dresser do? What does a set decorator do? Because this is also for people who have no knowledge about art
Yeah.
department. So the idea is that, if somebody has a flair, can join our department as, say, a on-set dresser, set dresser, and then graduate to maybe set decorator. So tell me, like, explain these different designations. So maybe you take
Cool.
three, you take three. You both can
Yeah.
decide which one.
We can just do one. I'll do one, then you
Yeah,
do one.
yeah.
You
Okay.
know.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
As you like.
Okay.
Difference between a production designer and an art director. It's always the thing because before there were no production designers in India, at least. So recently the credit started, I don't know how many years back, but it's a very recent phenomenon because all the people who headed the art department were called art directors.
Art directors.
So the
Yeah.
Yeah.
older ones, like the really, they still like to be called art director. Tell me the difference between a production designer and an art director. Like, what is
Okay.
the main difference?
So production designer is somebody who's involved from the start of the project, somebody who visualizes the entire project, somebody whose mood boards are what art directors would go off of. Art directors are usually your right hand person. They're the person would who would make those renders for you, who would make those come to life for you, who would deal with the construction people, who would deal with um not the set deck. I think set deck and PD have a different
Yeah.
relationship. they mostly deal with like they'll figure out everything. They'll hire everybody else on the team.
Mm.
That is one of the jobs that an art director has, figuring out the execution, the exact execution. Like usually if something goes wrong, the first person to ask the question to is either the coordinator or the art director. It's never the department head.
Mm.
It's one of those people who are like, acha, aaj truck late ho raha hai, kya kare? Just
Yeah.
those kind of, that, oh no, we have to pick this up before this. So all of those logistical things an art director does, all of the thing, and then hiring your whole team, just
So they
getting everybody.
execute your design, they handle the logistics, and they coordinate between different people to get work done on time.
Yes,
So it's more of
yes,
like an administrative work, but managing work, but also with the knowledge of construction so that they know what the people under them are doing. Then execution and managing job, mostly.
exactly.
And production designers build worlds. You
Yes,
decide. And our directors execute, correct?
yes, yes.
Now, what does a set decorator do?
Rohini.
So,
Yeah.
set decorator is, I think, the person who, in here at least, they come on board on a larger project alongside the production designer. So, the production designer, once they create the overall world, the construction part gets funneled into the art director side of work stream, and the props and everything allied with that, and soft dressing, as you say, goes into the set
Mm.
decoration. So, they are in charge of everything like fabric. So, getting the fabrics for the curtains, getting all the furnishings for the space, whether it is like for hard furniture in terms of like sofa, table, or soft furnishings as in like cushions, upholstery, those elements. They also have a props department under them that is working on the minute props, which are
Mm.
either seen as a part of set dressing or actively used by the actors. So all those elements come under set decoration. And so the set decorator actually does a lot of research themselves. Like once the production designer has given them the overall look and feel of like this is how I want it, those little details they have to go and then research, source, and bring and have on set. So they also have a lot of set dressers under them who get all these executed before the shoot. After when the shoot is going on, the production designer is probably on the walkie with those set dressers. But leading up to the shoot, the set decorator is the one taking the charge on getting the set into its finished state, with what I would consider it to be.
Shopping,
Yeah.
shopping,
Yeah,
shopping.
shopping is a big, yeah, shopping.
Shopping,
Shopping.
but shopping with keeping in mind the budget.
Of course.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Always. You're like
Always.
you, I
yeah,
go
like
into
they
a
Yadav
have the
house.
is,
entire
yeah,
construction budget and set decoration budget. So the
yeah,
construction budget is on all the logistics of that the art directors are overseeing, and then the set decoration budget, the set decorators overseeing, making sure
yeah.
that all of the shopping fun stuff is happening within that limit
Yeah, but
or
then when
constraint.
shopping becomes like a job, sometimes it becomes,
Yeah.
it's very tiring, because then you are not shopping for yourself, you're shopping for a job.
Another thing that set decorators often have to face is options on sets. Like usually with an art director, you find that you get this construction of the set. No one's going to tell you, give me two options of walls, but they might tell you, give me two options of
The bed cover.
couches
Hmm.
or a bed
Bed
cover. So
cover. But we live in America, which is a capitalist state, and we buy and return a lot of shit. We have a very
mm,
big culture of purchase and return over here, which
yeah.
like some Targets and some Walmarts over here like recognize some of my people. They're like, bro, she knows me. She knows me. I can't
Hmm.
go there to return. I'm like, so we're always like
But you guys don't have
packaging.
prop shops. You guys have prop shops.
But it's, when it's like you have the budget, but you still don't have the budget. Even on the biggest jobs, there are things that can be. Of course, we have most of the bigger items and most of the main items come from prop houses. But even with but then there are times when like there's something in the background that's not really visible, or like there's a curtain, or like there's something which they're like, oh, but we want sheer, but we don't want that much sheer,
Ah,
we want this much. So I'll bring both the sheer options, and then if we open one, the other one I'll not open and return it. But on a lot of projects, and one, this is like a good and bad thing, because like I am trying to get out of that, because a lot of producers are like, ah, you can just return it now. you can just, and I'm like, but I don't want to. I don't want to do that. I
Not
don't
after
want to
using it,
take it.
especially. Yeah, after
Yeah,
using it,
yeah.
it just,
After using,
I,
I don't return. That's a line I draw. But we do buy options and whatever we like. If we, whatever we don't use, unfortunately or whatever, like drawing a line that, and even in, I know that this happens even on union shows. When you use something, you don't return it. But,
Mm,
and we don't bring options for set deck. We only bring options for props, for hero props. So like, अगर चार टाइप के mics चाहिए, अगर एक era है, so it comes from a prop house. But अगर, if it's like super modern, super new, maybe I go to like 3, 4 different shops, buy, and like whatever they like, we use one, and then everything else get. It's a it's a world that we live in. The lifestyle, we call it a lifestyle or whatever.
and
Not
I
yeah.
think
very fun.
the biggest challenge of this is that again it is in service of the other departments, because we know how these items look. We are bringing them because other people can't visualize how they look.
It's the
Mm,
So
lack
we
of
are bringing three
visualization.
options of curtains because those people have to choose when it is physically there. We can choose on the basis of pictures. We can choose just by
Terms.
visualization in terms of like
I think more
completeness.
it's a fact that most of the people don't even trust the PDs that much, you know, in the sense that the time you don't show, they're not going to trust your. They're going to be like, oh no, but I need an option. I need an option because I'm not sure whether this works. This whole not trusting your PD and then hiring PDs for your jobs, I've never understood. You know, when you hire someone,
And
when
then
really,
90% they'll go with what you suggested
yeah.
Yeah,
because
Yeah,
yeah,
because that's like, you know, when a cinematographer says something, nobody refutes it because it's a cinematographer. He's saying something. He's heading a department, so he's saying something. So if a PD says something, there are 10 million people on set who can refute it. Oh no, but in my house it doesn't. It's not like that.
yeah.
In this movie I saw it, it's not like that.
Mm.
And this department is such that anybody can just like, you know, you finish a set, you have worked on it for I don't know how many days or weeks, and then, you know, during production, you have this whole team coming in from your DAs to your ADs, and everybody has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion on the napkin
Yeah,
you have. Everybody has an opinion on, not necessarily good opinion.
yeah.
Usually, "Oh, but why was this used? You could have used that." And you're like, how easy it is for anybody to come and just pick anything in our department. Try doing that with the light and electric team. Try
DP.
doing
Yeah,
that because you don't
yeah,
understand what they're doing.
yeah.
So you think
And
you
you
go
think,
ahead. Yeah, you don't understand,
but
but you think you know what we are doing because for you it's like, oh, you just had to decorate a middle class house, or you just had to decorate a rich house. So how difficult can that be? Come join us.
yeah,
Let me
come
show
join us.
you how
true.
difficult it can be.
Yeah, in general, and I think that is one of the reasons why I also feel that we are like a very uh, underrated like we are the people who are giving you what you're shooting. Like literally, I don't understand how can you not like how can you not have that sort of respect or that sort of like
Trust.
the same kind of trust with this department when literally you're hiring a person to do that job. And I think it happens as architects also, you know, like whenever you're designing somebody's house, also everybody feels like I'm a designer. I know exactly what I
Yeah,
want. And I'm
everybody
like,
in
no,
my
you
opinion.
don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
I
thing.
am also a
Everyone's
Everybody
a
thinks.
designer in their own head.
Yeah, but they just don't want
Yeah,
to be the head of department. They just don't want to
exactly.
handle our department. But they have
Exactly.
comments, they have remarks, they know
Exactly.
what has to be done. It's just that they don't want to do the job. For that,
Yeah.
we are hired. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
there are some nice people also. Some people would be like, no,
No, no,
we
there
can
are
see, I
very
know,
nice. That's
I've
why
done art
we are
department.
surviving and we are working
Yes,
because there are.
Yeah,
the
because of those few nice people that
nice
Yeah.
people.
appreciate once in a while, we are like, okay,
I
I
mean,
mean,
when you
next
can,
3 films I can do without appreciation.
yeah, because the thing is, like, when you really work with people who it's not necessary that they understand what you do. It's just that
Yeah,
it's very important that they respect and trust you. Then,
exactly.
then, then the game completely changes. The project becomes more enjoyable when you are not second guessed all the time. What is one of those annoying things about production design? To always kind of keep battling people's doubts about what you are doing. What, according to you both, would be that one thing which you don't like about this department at all and which you would like to change in general?
I think exactly that, what you said, like, nobody, I think a lot of times I just want people to trust me.
Hmm.
Just trust me, and I'm not bringing anything that you've not seen before. I'm not coming to set that you've never seen, or which, you have seen that image of that curtain, you have seen
Yeah,
that image of that. So it's not, I'm not bringing. So I think another very important thing is just people not understanding and taking this department for granted, that just how much we do versus like how little. And on set, of course, there's only two people on set, because we are not, our work is done. Our
yeah,
work is done pre-set. There's the on-set dresser, and they handle it, and the props person, and they handle the set. And that's why we are not the most visible ones on set, but we
yeah.
are the most. We are the ones who are there first and who leave
We are the
last
ones who
most
gave
of the
that
time.
space.
We're not visible because we are prepping the next setup that
Yeah,
you have,
they're
that you
always
have
on
to come.
forwards.
You
Yeah, yeah,
know
yeah. They're always
the
forward.
one thing that I really wish, there are times when like I've been to panels that even I have, like if I'm a production designer and I've been to like a movie screening, they always have like the producer, director, and DP sitting. A lot of times they don't have the production designer sitting, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but why do you not? I'm like,
But the same
how do
thing,
you miss?
even in film festivals, in the sense like there are always these, and that's what I like about Production Design Collective, just the very fact that they have gotten the
Yeah,
production designers all over the world, to have some kind of a definition to what you do, in the sense like, because
mhm,
there's these invisible people goes just everywhere. Even in a film festival, you'll always have like the cinematographer is definitely given a lot of importance,
yeah,
well deserved, and so does an editor and a
yeah.
writer and a
Editor too,
director
yeah, and not us.
and the actors and maybe the costume person as well at the
Yeah. True.
end.
Close to
And then,
they're close to the actors, and
yeah,
then we're there somewhere.
and then we are there. I mean, in the sense that a lot of critics also who don't really understand, maybe they don't understand what work has been put in, but there's not many people comment about your work in reviews. Not many people really talk about
Yeah,
production design, like, in the sense, I mean, if it's good production design, you will not miss it,
yeah,
but if it's bad, you will also not miss it.
yeah, true.
Yeah. So
One
now,
of the lines, one of
mm,
the lines that, just what to add to what you were saying, one of the like quotes that I really live by is, good production design is supposed to be invisible. And I'm like,
yeah.
yes, if nothing feels wrong to you other than
Then I've
acting
done
or
my job well.
yeah,
Yeah.
job's great. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but when
Yeah,
people talk about, oh, I was immersed in that atmosphere and that environment, and the DP did a good job, but you were immersed in an atmosphere, and that
exactly.
atmosphere was created by a production designer. Atmosphere is also created by us. There was this DOP I was working with, and so I just like, oh, you have really done a good job of this set. And she was like, yeah, because the base was so good. So when you have a
Exactly.
good base, then of course you also kind of help the DOPs to make their work easier and
Yeah.
maybe much more beautiful and better.
Mm.
Because like I said, it's a collaborative thing. It's completely like a visual collaboration.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, what do you have to add to that?
I think the same points definitely, that the fact that it's so undervalued, the fact that you're fighting every day just to get that. Like, no one will think twice about spending that big packet of money on the camera equipment, but when it comes to the art department, so I'm like, why do I have to on every project fight for
Like
it? And
you
then
have lighting budget, and then you have
yeah,
the list of practicals which are given. So I don't know, and which is not counted in the lighting budget, which is counted
Yeah.
in the
in the
art
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 budget,
department,
budget. Yeah.
though it is
exactly.
going to be used to light people.
Exactly.
It is,
So
and it's amazing.
And they
yeah, so
bring the
I think
bulbs. We
that's
don't even bring the bulbs. We just bring the
yeah,
lights. The bulbs
exactly.
Yeah,
are from them. So I'm just
yeah.
like, why is this not you?
It
Because I
has
mean,
Yeah,
I
to be
can,
them.
yeah.
yeah.
I
So
mean, I would like to pick them. I would like to still pick them, but the money
No,
can be
no, the
you.
money has to be there. Of course, it comes in like you as a PD. It's your job to make sure that the practicals are according to the decor which you have done. But I
Yeah.
don't understand, when that is the main source of light, why isn't the budget kind of divided between camera
between
Yeah.
and
lighting
art?
and
Because
art,
that way, you end up spending so much on practicals,
Yeah.
Because you do, because nowadays most of the projects are practically lit. Budget is never split, it's
Yeah, so I
always.
think that's probably the part of our department that annoys me because I'm like, I would love to come to one project where I get to do just my job, which is design and build that world,
Yeah.
and not
Never.
firefight on all these other. That's a dream project, right? Where
But then when you start
you don't
pointing
have
out these
to,
things, you become, and especially if you're a woman,
Tough,
you
tough
become
to
you
a
work
become
difficult,
unreasonable and you're very difficult
difficult
to
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 work
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 with.
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 Yeah, if you're
Tough to work.
You
demanding
have an attitude
water for your
problem.
workers or your team, you're difficult to
Yeah.
work with. If you are demanding anything, you're difficult to work with. As long as you're hee-hee-hawing, it's very fine. And you're the most fun person to work with. I mean, there are people who work like that and there are people who don't work like that. But
Yeah.
I agree, this is one of the most frustrating part of our department. But now we
Yeah.
have to come back to the most beautiful, enjoyable part of our department. What do you feel? I mean, that feeling after you have done your work and you see, what you have visualized in front of you. And after it's being lit by the cinematographer and you see the frame. I think that feeling is just beyond like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times I'm like standing on frame and I have my art director with me and I'm talking to her and I'm like, dude, this looks so good. And then I'm like, why am I saying this? Other people should say this.
I think that is what we need to do
I
more.
agree.
We need to be more like, we need to own our work more and feel proud in what we are doing. So, you now tell me what is, for you both, the best part of being production designers and why you would recommend it to other people.
Uh, for me, the best part is just creating something out of nothing. I have words and I'm making you a whole thing. Like one of the I remember like one of my very big inspirations to get into this was I had gotten like hooked onto Game of Thrones end of my architecture towards like fourth year, fifth year. And I was just like looking at those glasses and looking at those sigils, and I'm like, yaar, these don't exist. These are made specifically. So like even now, and the biggest thing is like you learn every single time. Like I'm learning new every single day on. I'm learning something new every single day on set. Like every like अच्छा ये तो नहीं आता था मुझे ये भी नहीं आता था मुझे. So making something out of literally nothing. You're making a language for a show. You're making a glass for one kind of person, and you're making another glass for another kind of person. And I think that is just very like I don't think it happens anywhere else in the world, like and and we get to also inspire. Like when you see this and like people like me, I saw a show and I got inspired to do this. I and that show like made me think that I want to work on a show. I want to work on something that good, that great, that can inspire somebody else. Like when you look at it, when you look at the design, you look at acha, why is this bottle like this versus why is this, and like understand just going into the why and like making it for somebody. I think that's the part I absolutely love about this. And I would like, if you're curious, if you're inquisitive, if you want to like know more, if you want to like just, again, like, of course, filmmaking is such a varied thing. There's so many things that happen. And even in our department, production design is one thing, being like, I know so many people who like are fabricators and they love doing that. They love
Yeah,
doing arts and
yeah,
crafts and they just love making props. And there's so many people who are good just on set. So trying this out and understanding what you like, and don't be afraid to like, sometimes people are like, oh, I'm an aspiring production designer, but maybe you realize when you're doing that you're a better set deck or you're a
yeah,
better on-set person.
yeah.
I think that's okay because you are good at that, and that is something that still makes the art department. Production
Of
design is not
course.
every. You're nothing without your team. Your team is the one who's doing the
Mm.
thing. So I think just realizing and understanding and accepting that also. But just looking at something, and if it makes you curious, then this is what it is. You got to try it. I tell everybody, I was like, you have to try it first because it is different. Every single department, every single role is different. You might be a good manager, but you might not. Like I know people who are like, design overwhelms me a little bit, but I think I'm very good at organizing and managing. So I'm like, oh, you'd be a great art director. Automatically that, and accepting and understanding that, but just creating something out of nothing
Mm.
is my most favorite thing.
And for you?
Yeah, I think like when I this is something I've done since I was a kid, but when I open a like I'm reading a book, the minute I read a book, I imagine something like a visual comes into my mind, and I did not realize that I've been doing this all my life,
Mm,
and that is probably what a
Yes.
production designer is.
mm,
And now I have that understanding many years later that I've always somewhere in my mind obviously done that, which is read something and then visualize what that might be. So I think my favorite part about production design is um, that you touch so many different elements and no 2 days look the same in this job.
mm,
Every project, every script, every treatment is so different. And I think that's partly why I even left architecture, because I have actually worked 2 years in architecture and I can dramatically uh, see the difference. And I can tell people that are like, oh, maybe I want to do production design versus architecture, that I've done both and I know how different they are.
mm,
Um, it's truly fast paced. I love that fast paced nature. I love that every 3 months I'm designing a whole different world. In just this 1 year alone, I've gone from sci-fi horror to neo noir to hard hitting drama. So that element of being able to create something drastically different every 2 3 months is something that's very exciting to me. That So that's something I love. I agree with Rachi. I would tell people though to try everything and see what fits you. I think, unfortunately, in some extent, I know we've talked about production design being undervalued, but we also forget that within the art department, sometimes production design is overvalued to a
mm.
point of everyone wants to be the PD.
Yeah.
But everyone doesn't necessarily need to be the PD. Every person in the crew is so important, and without that, the art department would not function. So I definitely think everyone should try everything, and I think that India is a great place for that. I think for me, I had a sharper learning curve in India than I ever did here, simply because once you come here, all these like different designations of graphic designer and all start to fall in place. So you sometimes, in an early stage, you feel very bracketed. You're like, I'm getting to only make graphics and all that. But when you're in India, you get to do a little bit of everything. And then you can make that informed choice that, oh, that's what I enjoyed the most on set. Maybe I actually did enjoy being on shoot and being the on-set dresser. And
Mm.
some people are good at handling that pressure, like
Yeah, yeah.
really great at handling the pressure of on-set shoots. So I think in India, if you get to try everything, then you'll maybe know what it is that you enjoy the most and that you want to sort of specialize in some way, and take on that role in the long term. Sometimes it's a little harder to do that here because you're a little bracketed. But yeah, it's just the magic of. I think, like I keep telling my husband even now, that every day that I get a call sheet which says production designer Rohini Jadhav, that just lights me up. Like I get so excited when I open that morning call sheet and I see
Yeah.
my name against production designer. That's my thrill.
For the anxiety which comes with this job, what are your tips and tricks?
I think I have learned to take it very, like, I get very, my stress, like if I am stressed on set, then everybody knows that something's fully wrong. So I usually, because I always, I'm the head of department. If my attitude and if my way of talking, or if my body language shows the stress, everybody around, it's a domino effect. Everybody around me automatically
Yeah,
gets that.
yeah.
So I mostly try to keep it to max myself and my art director, or myself and my set deck. Like, we're usually, I have these two people that I work with, switching them in positions always, and it's usually the three of us that I'm like discussing every single thing with. But like, again, this one time, a PA who's like a very good friend of mine just came to me, and I was running. Something was needed on set, and like nobody was going. And suddenly, yeah, the minute I hear art, no matter where I am on set, I hear it. I hear it. And I'm
That's
like,
your
but they
Bombay
need to.
training.
Yeah,
And
I'm
yes,
here.
it is actually. It is my Bombay training, because यहाँ पे I'm just like, bro, तुम बात कर रहे हो? They're yelling art like, wow, you know. So the minute I hear art, there was this one time when I was running and everything, and this one PA told me, this one friend of mine told me that, uh, calm down, you don't need to run, don't hurt yourself. They might be 2 minutes late. They're not gonna die. It's okay. And I'm like, okay, 2 minutes late is okay, And I'm still learning that. I like my partner keeps telling me all the time. He's like, you gotta breathe. You gotta breathe. Like I don't breathe in between. Is what like I face a lot that I'm constantly like yeah.
But you always had
And
a flair for like managing stressful. When you first started off, you'd never been on a set, but you just took to a set like a fish in the water. You just kind of like, just, you were so natural. Like after
thank
the first
you.
3 4 hours, you were just like as you've been in our department forever. So I think that's like an innate thing in you.
It's my personality. I think
Yeah.
I'm a very no stress. Like, kya hi hoga stress leke we'll think. But and I think that also like really kicks. Like it's one of my kicks on set. Like issue aaya, come. We'll all get stressed and then we'll figure it out. And the minute you figure it out, that is my adrenaline. I live for it. I live for it. I'm like, okay, I figured it out. I have a solution. So that is the most important. I try to, and like there's been only once on set where like I had a complete breakdown because it was like a complete 2 weeks of just chaos. And everything was going wrong, and one pin also hit me, and I was like, oh. And that was the day I heard that my job flipped union. So like at the end of all this, the job flipped union, and then again I had like something to be grateful for. Like I had a whole breakdown, and then I was like, okay, it's all worth it. I wanted to get in the union
You
this
see
year.
the
I got
silver
in.
lining everywhere.
Yeah, I always
You
do. I
you
try to
you
do.
are perfect for our department. Now coming to Rohini, are you also like Rashi? Like you don't take anxiety too much. Like what is your take on this entire thing?
I think truly it just like I like the stress of our department. I like that craziness.
Yeah.
Again, like I live for that craziness. And if you don't live for that, you can't be in this. And I've done the 9 to 5 in architecture, so I know I have that option. I can go back to that. If I don't like this, I don't need to be here. So I do. I think everyone has to like the chaos that comes with that
Yeah,
department
we
to
are
some
all
extent.
chaotic. There's a reason
Yeah,
why
we're
we
all
are in our
chaotic.
department.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's just striking that balance. Earlier, I used to feel guilty that when I'm not on a project, I'm being extremely lazy and sleeping 15 hours. But now I've realized that no, I need those 15 hours so
Yeah.
that when I have sleep deprived on set, it's okay. So I think that's like the balance that I strike. Like I can be the most active person, and you will see that on set, and then I can be the most lazy person, which is what you'll see at home. Where I'm
Me too.
like, my
I'm
husband is
very
like, "Bachcha
lazy at
piling
home.
up."
Like
I'm like,
really
"It's okay,
lazy at
it's
home.
fine." I'm more
Yeah.
worried about my characters' clothes being neatly folded in their house on set than about my own clothes being neatly folded at home. I'm more stressed about that. So I do have those like ups and downs, and I think just learning to take that in your stride is important. It's sometimes like our department is really sometimes you're on 21 out of 15, and sometimes you're on like 10 out of 15, and you have to be okay with that.
Sometimes you fail
Uh,
also.
Sometimes
Yeah,
you fail,
sometimes you
sometimes it's
fail
not.
also.
Sometimes you
Yeah.
fail, and you just have
That
to
then you
suddenly be
learn.
okay with it.
Yeah.
And you're going to be upset. You're going to be upset in the moment. You can't not feel upset after you put in so much work and it's failed. So you're going to be upset, but then like just realizing that you're also human after all. And much as we like to think we're magicians in our head because of our nature of our
I
work,
don't
we
know
are
whether
not
we think we
truly.
are magicians. I think people think we are magicians, so we have
People
to
think
behave
we.
like magicians.
But
And sometimes we're
yeah,
so anxious
something.
to get that magic done.
Exactly.
There's so much of,
So
there's money riding on you, there's time riding on you, and then you're suddenly supposed to do things, especially when, your schedule changes suddenly. Like you're supposed to do
Mhm.
something and something else comes and you've been prepping for something. That happens in long formats, that happen in long feature films, that happen in series for
one,
sure. I
one
find
instance
series
Also,
that
it
really
happens
comes
in
to mind.
everything. It happens in everything. I've had sets change at 3 p.m. I have had a set change at 9 p.m. when they're shooting next day, and then they've pushed shoot till 3 p.m. because they're like, oh, now you have all
I have
morning.
once I was doing an
Sorry.
ad in Bombay way back, and at that point of time, the agency came and flipped the entire creatives, and we had already finished a lot of work. And then we had to work the whole night, and the producer was sitting there making sure none of us
None
goes
of us were
home.
sleeping.
None of us goes home.
So,
Oh my
do you get overtime in India?
Not at
Here
all.
you get Oh, here you get overtime. That's
Where do
another
you
thing.
get no overtime? There is no concept of time
There
in
is no
India.
concept of time, no. When does your day start and end for
Yeah.
overtime to
The
begin?
minute you say yes, not even when you sign your contract, the minute
That's your
you
life.
say yes, just like,
I am
yes, I
yours.
will
You
do the
signed over your
project.
life.
You get a barrage of things, on your inbox and then that's it.
But
Just
I think
follow.
because of all of this, the little bit of humor that you can find for yourself is also very
Uh,
important in this
Yeah,
whole
you
job.
on
Like,
retrospect, you find the humor.
no,
Like,
but actually,
yeah.
like on one set, one of my projects in India, I remember there was like the actor had to throw a folder, and this
yeah.
was Paris Travel G was acting in that, and he had to throw a folder. I like he threw the folder three times, the folder only came apart. And then our department is scrambling. I am
Yeah.
scrambling, trying to glue the folder back and all. And obviously, we're all stressed. And everyone, like every few minutes, the AD team would be like, "Is it done?
How
Is
much
it
time?
done? Is it
How much
done?
time?
And
How
how
much
much time? How
time?
much time? How much time?" They were stressing me out. Meanwhile, Paresh Ravalji on set, he starts singing a song. And he starts making up his own song and singing it. And because he started doing that,
Yeah.
everyone else
Yeah. Yeah.
laughed
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everyone else was
There
like,
are
"It's fine."
there are certain
So now
senior
I start to
actors.
do that sometimes. Like sometimes if I see someone in my department stressing, I just start singing a song. And then that just brings the humor and they laugh and they're like, oh, it's not that bad. It's not the end of
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's true.
it's
That's
yeah.
true. That's very true.
And then another thing that I also live by here, which again another friend of mine had said was, if somebody like does a mistake, of course, like you own up to it. You always do. And my dialogue, and somebody comes to me and like, I'm sorry. I'm like, don't be sorry, be better. That's my line for life. Don't be sorry, be better. And like, I don't
You
say
should
it
get a
in
t-shirt
any mean
printed.
way. Literally. And I don't say it in any mean way, right? I'm just like, yeah, you just have to do better next time.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
learn from now and you have to do better next time. It's like, don't be sorry, be better.
So with this, we
Yeah.
end the session of New Wave South Asian edition. It was really lovely chatting with both of you. I really enjoyed chatting with you. And I hope we can collaborate on some project at some point in our lives. Or in general, just meet each other in some film festival or wherever in some part of the world. Okay?
Yes.